Okay, it's a little past 6:30. All of the select board members are present except for Tom. The town manager is present, and there's a group from the Lad Center board that I'll ask to tell us who they are in a minute. We're going to convene our work session. This is to discuss a way forward on a Lad Center program ordinance. The select board's not, it's a select board proceeding. But we're not going to take any action or have any motions. And it's going to be a shared deal between the two of us discussing it. With that being said, it's open for discussion. We have.
Do you want to start with introductions, Henry?
Yeah, oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yes. We're
Ben
gonna go
Swaley, I'm on the board of the Lad Recreation Center.
Hazel Stevenson, I'm on the select board.
And Eric Stiniford, Chair of the Lad Board.
Betsy Ladd, part of the Ladd Recreation Center Board. Sharon Barney, part of the board.
Charlie Bonnie, part of her.
Free Lad Recreation Center Board.
Adam Brooks, Lad Center Director.
Trish Hanley Goodwin, Lad Center Board.
Nancy Martin, Lad Center Board, brand new Land Center. Brand spanking new. I've got a lot to learn. Thank you.
But you're a repeat offender, though.
Mary Ann Butek, Select Board.
Henry Steck, Select Board.
And Shannon McDonald, Town Manager.
So Henry, I don't know how you want to proceed with this. Do you want to start with just some general questions and comments? I think everyone on the Lad Board is very familiar with what we've drafted, but.
Okay.
Um,
But
Yes.
Not necessarily your comments and questions.
Okay, those haven't been,
We got those.
right.
oh, just recently?
Just, yeah,
He's got an-
Oh,
an hour ago.
I was really, they've been out for a long time. I was under the impression that y'all had them.
No.
All right, well, they're all, we can talk, what I plan is just asking the questions. And then let's talking about the ordinance.
Can we set the stage a little
Yes,
first
ma'am.
though, because we've had numerous conversations. My understanding is, while we've had conversations about the Lad Center becoming a corporation of its own, 501(c)(3), right? Versus the Lad Center operating as a town department. This is kind of the hybrid in the middle, and I understood that we wrote the ordinance, and ultimately are going to send it to the lawyers to see, are there any legal reasons why the hybrid third option wouldn't work? So I thought we were looking at
Yeah.
it from that hybrid perspective.
I see it a little differently.
Okay,
The way I see it is, the last time we met as a group, I re-expressed, my opinion on how it should go with the separate corporation. And I also said, that's a matter for the Lad Center to decide, not for the town to decide. And so if you all don't want to do that, you don't want to do that. I said, that may mean that it's going to be a town department. And I suggested that, Eric write whatever ordinance he thinks is good and writes it. And then we need to take that and look at it. I don't believe there's been any decision by the select board that we agree that a hybrid situation is the way to go. That's my opinion and my understanding. I think that ultimately at this meeting, we want to get clarification and come up with a proposed ordinance. Then at a select board meeting, the select board needs to consider and act on it and decide whether this is what we want to send to our lawyer and see what they say about it. And then whether we want to send it to the town. And that's what I think. What do you think, Eric?
Well, no, I think I generally agree with what Hazel said. We started out this process well over a year ago. And at one point, we were looking at two distinct options. One where the town or the Lad Center Board would incorporate as a separate organization and essentially contract with the town for the operation of programs. The second being a department of the town. And then we introduced the notion of a hybrid third option, which was somewhere in between. And the Lad Center board has had considerable discussion of those three options and has concluded that we don't think it makes sense to pursue independent incorporation in a contract structure. That, in our view, would introduce additional costs that would have to be incurred. It would be a less efficient way to manage the programs. And so that's not our preferred option. We, upon review of town council's reading of the issues and the opinions that he provided, drafted this ordinance to incorporate what we felt was everything that he suggested in his memo. We didn't see anything in his memo that said that this structure couldn't work as long as it was well documented in an ordinance and approved by the legislative body of the town. I respect that we may have a differing view of that. But that's where we were coming from in drafting this. And so if there are elements of the proposal that the select board feels are simply unacceptable, do not comport with the law or legal requirements of an ordinance or of a structure for the town, we'd like to hear that. I'm not sure that we're in any position tonight to negotiate different language, but at least hear the concerns and see if there's a way they can be addressed.
I think what you'll find and I'm sorry you didn't have these before, but my, I guess, secret memo that you all didn't get, it has more of questions and comments as opposed to alternative language. And I would suggest that maybe we can start on that and get some clarification from you all. If we start at the beginning as an example, and that's a good place to start.
Henry, I'd just like to give a little bit more of a background.
Sure.
The opinion that you got initially from the law firm that for the town was from the personnel attorney. And it starts out, and this is the attorney who gave the two options. It's either got to be one or the other. But he starts out saying, given the information that he has, this is what he had to say. And he clearly did not have very significant, important information. For example, he did not have the, what would you call it? The working, what's your agreement called? The
Bylaws?
The
Effectively, Adam's employment agreement.
yes.
Yeah.
Adam's employment agreement, which spelled out some of the things that he had concerns about were taken care of with that. He also didn't know that the history of how the hiring and the supervision went on, which included not only the participation of the town manager, but a leading role in that, in terms of, I think that Adam was brought to the possibility of the position through the town manager, not through the board. So there's a history of cooperation and joint supervision and documented way in which the hiring and firing is supposed to happen. And he did not have any of that. And so I think that his qualification, given the information he had, is pretty important. And the follow-up, the next memo was one from our regular municipal town attorney, Bill, which didn't say any of that, of what the first attorney said. And we were working on that memo from him as a basis for the agreement that the ordinance that is drafted.
And I will say, just for the benefit of select board members that may not know all the history, but what has been drafted and presented to you here really reflects what's been in place for 44 years now. It hasn't always been followed to the same extent, but this is the structure that's been in place.
And it's been satisfactory.
I think it's worked very well for the town.
Well, I'm interested in putting a proposal from you, from the lad group, to the select board to consider. We all may have different opinions on the select board. Whenever I give you an opinion, that's Henry talking. It's not the select board talking. Okay. But I have questions that I'm going to suggest. Does it mean A or does it mean B? And if it means B, can we clarify exactly what B is? And that's how we start out with the paragraph A in lines 4 through 11. And the comment that I have is this: if the goal of the ordinance is to provide for the operation of these programs as a town department, I suggest the paragraph should be rewritten. If the goal is to provide some other type of arrangement for the structure and operation of the RC programs, I suggest the language clearly state what that arrangement is. So, when we say program and purpose, it's an ordinance for the town to establish the Ladd Center recreation programs as something. You know, I believe if it's town payroll, and if it's town employment taxes being paid by the town, and if it's the town's tax ID number that's being used, that it's a town function. And not a function, because the town ultimately is responsible. We say all the people are town employees. But the town, in fact, and we can say, well, really, the town manager exercises enormous authority over this group. I don't really believe that's true, but maybe it is. My town manager she can correct us, and you may need to, you're a participant in this, Shannon, as far as what actually goes on. So my question on paragraph A is, what are the Ladd programs? Is that you say it's a hybrid, describe it. I mean, I can describe what I see is, okay, the Ladd programs is a town department. But you suggest that that is not the way it should be. So what would you describe the Ladd program as vis-a-vis the town? So we can put that in the ordinance up front.
Well, I think we tend to get very hung up on labels. And if it helps people to call it a department, you know, maybe that's something that we can work with. But I think the structure of what we're proposing is defined by the elements of the whole ordinance, not just the introductory paragraph.
Yeah.
It says that, you know, it's a structure under which programs and services are developed by the independent board of directors, implemented by a town employee who is the director and his staff. That's the structure. You know, what label we put on that, I'm not sure we need to get hung up on.
So I thought we talked about the term operating agreement or operating arrangement. And without getting hung up on department, which I think has got a whole lot of other connotations to it. If this needs further clarification about the programs, well, I think you got to separate the programs as in terms of what's offered from the structure and operations of the rec center as an entity or an operating agreement. Can we add something that speaks to Henry's problem without getting hung up on department?
It almost seems like it's more of a partnership.
Yeah.
But then that
is.
has to be defined, but it's a very special partnership. From my point of view, using the word department does have a lot of connotations that I think we're trying,
Yeah.
I think we're trying to avoid.
Now, well, is it part of the town or not part of the town? If it's part of the town, is it governed and controlled by the town meeting and the town manager? If it's not part of the town, then what is it? And what's the role of the town? Now, the operating agreement, let me tell you what I think. An operating agreement is a contract between a town and another agency, usually to operate a program in a town facility. And the disfavored approach that I suggested at first was the Ladd Center works just like the library. works just like the Friends of organizations in many other towns.
Well,
And it is,
It's not the same as the
And-
library because the library is independent of the town. The
Yes.
town funds it, but it's independent and
Yeah.
the rec center isn't.
The-
The lads gave the rec center and the funds to the town of Wayne,
the,
not to an entity like the library has.
the,
There's no comparison to the library.
the Lad Recreation Center is a building. And that real estate was conveyed to the town with conditions. And that condition was that this gift should be used for certain purposes, or it could be conveyed back to the donors. That was what the deal was with the Lad Center being the Lad Recreation Center being a town building. Which is why I think the town needs to fix your leaky toilet. And the town needs to maintain the building because it is a town building. But all I'm suggesting is that, for example, you say we can call it a town department, but if we call it a town department, then the law says, since we're under a town manager form of government, that the town manager is responsible to hire and supervise all the department heads.
That we're not saying it's a department.
We talked about, let's not mince words, maybe we can call it a department, and I'm trying to explain what the significance of that is. If we call it a town department, then the manager is hired, the director, the department head is hired by the town manager.
And that's
That's what-
superseded by local ordinance. And
No, ma'am, not that one. The answer to that is no. And geez, I don't have the ordinance in front of me or the roll in front of me, but there's one of many things that says unless local ordinance provides otherwise. It's not to every one of those.
Is there a big difference between, the board recommending, finding, choosing, and then being formally hired by Shannon?
I think a board recommendation, an advisory board is perfectly fine. I think to say that, for example, Shannon can discharge a program director with the consent of the LAD board. I think if it's town department, that's not fine, but that's just in my opinion. So my question is, you've told me the intention is not to be a town department. And I said, okay, if that's not the intention, could we more clearly state in these paragraphs what it is? And if you're telling me we can't, well, then we'll leave it like it is and see what happens. If you're telling me you can, but you need to work on it, well, then that's okay. Let's work on it. And so that was my question. And so,
You've got a question out here?
yes, ma'am.
I'm just curious, what other departments currently exist? Like the aging at home, is that a department? or-
The aging home is a town activity and the
but is
town
it
hires,
Like a department?
well, we don't, we don't have an official thing that's called a department, but it's treated as a well, it will be treated as a department if the aging at home ordinance is accepted by the town at the town meeting.
We have a fire department. We have a codes enforcement department. We have an animal control officer department that falls under public safety.
Yeah.
We contract out for a lot of our other public safety aspects. And then we have a land and buildings department, and that kind of all falls under a category. And with parks, we had parks and recreation. And so under recreation, one of my other questions would probably pertain to the Wayne Athletic League, because that also includes Adam. But he's also under the Lad Rec Center board. So when we implement the Wayne Athletic League, are there certain stipulations for the town as far as running it as a department? But I mean, under some of those other things, we have committees and things, but those are the departments that we have, and general administration.
But that was really, it was a question on the first paragraph A. My comment was, if it's a town department, I suggest it be reworded as such and such. If it's not a town department, can we please explain what it is?
I think the answer to your question is, it's not meant to be a town department.
Okay, but then
So
explain what it is.
Then I think I would like to know more what you have, what is it that needs to explain what it is? You mean that what is the structure that needs to be explained, or what is the purpose of what is the purpose of the programs?
Well, as we go through, for example, the draft provides that the LRC board oversees and makes policy for and oversees the content and quality of the LRC programs. Is the intent for the LRC board to exercise all management and operational control of these programs? That's a question.
And I think the answer is yes.
Okay.
And I thought, based on our prior discussions, that that was the select board's preference as well, that you did not want to have responsibility for managing that level of detail.
Right.
No, I agree. And that's why that's why some of us thought you ought to be like the library. But the answer is, okay, so the town has no role in making policy or overseeing these programs. Is that correct? And if that's correct, I'd like to make that clear. And we don't have to answer these questions. Now, maybe this is a good meeting to get them out on the table and understand. All I want to know is, are you saying the LRC board runs this and the town doesn't? That's the question. And if the answer is yes, well, that's okay. That's your answer. And that needs to go in our comments, that goes to our person who's going to review the ordinance and saying, is that an acceptable arrangement for something where the town has liability for the programs, where the town is the employer for all the employees, where if an employee has a sexual harassment claim, as an example, that comes against the town. Okay, is that acceptable? And if they say it is, it is. We put it to the town, and if they vote yes, that's the way it
I
is.
think the way you framed it, Henry, is not what we're proposing, and it's
Okay.
not what this ordinance says. I
Okay.
mean, the director is managed jointly by the town manager and this board. If there's a problem with the director or his behavior or his performance, the town manager has full authority to terminate that employee in accordance with the town's employment policies.
Okay. Without the consent of the lab board.
Well, all we've asked for in here is that it at least be a consultation.
Okay. And
It doesn't say consent is required.
when that's another question that I have. And all I want to do, all I'm suggesting is that things like this should be clarified and put out on the table as they are. And you're right. It's been running for 40 years and it's fine. And maybe we don't even need an ordinance. It's been going for 40 years. That's a story that the chain smoker told me right before he got his diagnosis. It's fine. If that's what you ask, if that's your proposition, then the select board votes and it goes to the town. So
We probably don't need an ordinance, but we recognize for several years that we do need to understand what the relationship is between the Lad Center board and the select board.
mhm.
And that's what this is attempting to do, is to define that. And I don't know that it needs to be an ordinance, frankly.
Yeah.
So I think our lawyer advised having an ordinance in his July memo, laid out the structure, and I think this is what you built it off. I think what's missing is, to Henry's point, what does the Lad Center do and what does the town do? So perhaps, I mean, I talk about roles and responsibilities at work all the time, but something that articulates clearly what the town is responsible for and what the rec center is responsible for, as a statement somewhere in the before B, right at the top, in either with A or as a subparagraph that gets inserted.
So I see
And-
a lot of that in here, but you're suggesting.
Just
we
put it right up front so that you
Yeah.
don't have to read the whole document and try and figure out who's who in the zoo. Just have it clear, this is what the rec center is responsible for and this is what the town's responsible.
And the questions, maybe these questions I said just can be answered and we can send it to the lawyer. And do we need an ordinance? I want to visit about that for a minute. They're employees of the town. The town uses the town's tax ID number. You don't have a bank account, you use the town's bank account. Whether this is a good arrangement, a bad arrangement, a proper arrangement, whatever, I suggest that the ultimate answer to that question, it's not for the select board to decide. It's not for you guys to decide. It's for town meeting to decide. That's why we need an ordinance. Because if the town is liable for this, it's run through the town, but it's not like the library, it's not separate, then the town has to agree that this is proper and it's what they want to do. And that's why we need to send the ordinance to town meeting and let them vote on it.
Which is why I've been working on this for 3 years
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
So I
So-
think, and along with the
We need to get a
responsibilities of
clearer idea of exactly what's called for,
Yeah.
exactly what's called for, not generalization, but exactly what's called for. Maybe
Or-
we even need to draft it ourselves.
Or maybe just go through and answer the questions and we'll send it to whoever's gonna review this and say, is that an okay arrangement for the town, in your opinion? As the draft provides, the LRC board oversees and makes policy for and oversees the content and quality of the LRC programs. Is the intent for the LRC board to exercise all management and control over these programs? If it's yes, it's yes. If it's, well, that's a little strong, you put that a little strong, I think you're slanting this, Henry. Then change it to what actually is the case. What do you want? What are you wanting? The draft provides that the LRC board recommended operating budget. It provides that the LRC board approves the recommended operating budget. Is that your internal budget? Or are you saying that you have to approve a town budget? Now, I really think we've solved that. As far as I'm concerned, that's okay with your internal budget. No, I think I think we have a budget article that handles that.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say, well, I think you've got budget and funding in here. I think there should be a section that speaks to sort of the financial management in terms of the grant from the family being accepted, whether or not that's done appropriately. I think we put something on the warrant every select board meeting to accept the donations and the incidental earnings. But I think there's a section in here that could clarify how those finances work in terms of money coming in and money being approved to be spent because
Yeah,
they're
I-
written out of our warrant, the town warrant.
I didn't want to
Yeah.
duplicate what's already in law. I mean, it's.
Yeah. But here, and I think that there has, and again, we have done it for many years. Of course, I don't know how we've done it for many years because I can go back into the 1990s and I can see warrant articles at every meeting carrying forward the Ladd Center appropriation to the next year. And those dropped out at some point in time,
Yeah.
and I don't see those anymore. And as a result of that, our treasurer has spent an exceedingly large portion of her time in Wayne since she's been hired, trying to straighten out the mess between the Ladd Center finances records and the town's financial records. Now,
Employees of the town,
yeah.
who never could remember which account to put the money in.
now,
And that is not the responsibility of this board to supervise those people. We would take money in and say, this is for the rec center, this is for the savings, this is for whatever it is for. And we didn't see where they put it, but they put it in the wrong account. And
and
that was not our responsibility because we weren't checking out. We
But
have,
maybe-
we
but-
have a spreadsheet. We know
Yes.
how much we spent.
And did you ever go to the town and say, do your figures and our figures come forth to one another? And I think we have this fixed, so it should automatically happen, which is the way it should have been all the time. But I agree. I agree, Gloria, that I think it was probably the fault of the town for bad record keeping. I think it was the fault of the Ladd Center. Because if you don't want to hire a person to handle your own finances and you want the town to do it, you say, town, we want you to be our banker because we don't have a bank account. Town, we want you to pay our bills because we don't have someone to pay them. Then I think you have some modicum of responsibility also in addition to
Well, I
us,
think went hand in hand.
see, yeah,
I think it went
see.
hand in hand. Both of them, they didn't communicate.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's
a
not,
failure of communication.
I think it is, Betsy. That's all I'm saying is,
Yeah.
I think
But
the
now we gotta
town,
move on from there.
yeah,
and
the
say,
town dropped,
okay,
the town dropped the ball.
awful,
Anybody
let's
that, anybody that wants to say the town dropped the ball, I say yes. And so did you. And now we need to move on.
So to my point, without duplicating what's in law, I think if we have a finance section that talks about the operations of how that works, then that would add clarity. So 10 years from now, there's not another group of people sitting around this table having the same debate, because I don't know about you, but I'm not gonna be here.
go.
Would
That's my bit.
citing that the sections of the law be adequate?
Well,
I mean, rather than.
Well, you've got the law, but you've got the actual, like the.
well, I think we have,
You got a workflow of
Yeah.
money coming in and
Well,
going out
well-
that is in compliance with the law. But does anybody actually, is it actually articulated, like who's responsible for what and how
Yeah,
it flows?
but it is, but it will be now.
So,
Actually, I think it, I'll ask, my co-conspirator on the Warren article, Eric. I think it will be now. Do you think so or not?
Yeah, I think we have a structure now going forward.
Yes.
That will work.
That will work and will solve this issue, provided that the town approves the Warren article. Another Warren article that's gonna go to the town is, will you vote to transfer X dollars from town reserves to the Ladd Center account? With an explanation that these are rollover monies that were never, it was kept on the ledger, but it was never properly transferred. And the rationale is, these are monies that were contributed for Ladd Center programs, but were not spent. And that money now resides in the town's undesignated reserves. And by agreeing to make this transfer, you'll honor the wishes of the people who contributed the money. And the town treasurer has looked at this and verified the amount as being fair. That's an article that we will recommend. That needs to be passed by the town. I'm quite sure they will. But that should have been done all along, and now we can fix it.
Mhm.
Right. But to your point, Hazel, if you look starting on line 112 of the ordinance, program budget and funding, I think it goes through those items of I don't have.
Yeah, I thought you were suggesting that we're not adequately recording when there's a major payment from the LAD grant, or the major funding comes in. Is that going on a warrant?
Yes, it is
It is?
now.
I think it is now.
I don't know that I can remember seeing one on a warrant.
Yeah, what it'll all say is that you vote to accept contributions in the amount of such and such to supplement the appropriation for Ladd Center programs.
I thought
And
those
some
were
of
the
those-
incidental ones.
No,
Well, take,
every about 4 times a year, you'll get a hit in there for about $20,000 or 20-some thousand. And
Which we weren't
Yeah.
doing before, so.
yeah, we weren't doing that before, and we've had that recently. I think we had one a couple meetings ago.
Yeah.
That was,
Okay.
it might have been, it
I
might have
thought you
been.
were suggesting that wasn't happening.
No.
No, not, I'm suggesting that wasn't happening prior to this year, but it's happening.
Right.
Now it's happening.
And
Yeah.
what hasn't happened the
It
last
hasn't
several
happened.
years was that the year-end balance surplus that was remaining in the LAD operating fund was not carried forward. So it was-
Has this been just the last couple of years?
it goes back, I would say, at least 6 years,
Yeah.
maybe longer.
And so what as far as the ordinance goes on those portions of it for the finance, it basically says that programs are funded primarily through contributions from the Helen and George Ladd Charitable Corporation. The income supplemented by grants, fees assessed for specific programs and services, other charitable contributions, and the town of Wayne appropriations funded through property tax. Then we talk about what the LRC program costs are. The warrant article that I think we're going to suggest looks quite different
Mhm.
than what we've had in the past. And what it says is this particular one is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $5,000 for operation of LAD Recreation Center programs and to authorize the program to also expend the balance of the LAD Recreation Center Programs Reserve Fund and any funds raised in donations or revenues during FY 26-27. And then there's an explanation of that. And then there's your budget that your group comes up with. And that note basically says the LAD Recreation Center Program's operating budget for FY 26-27 is $150,400, assuming I haven't messed that up.
Nope,
And you'll
that
fix
was
me
right.
up. And is funded by the town appropriation above, the $5,000, cash donations, program revenues supplementing that appropriation, and expenditures from the LAD Rec Center Program Reserve Fund as may be necessary. Total expenditures for these purposes for FY 26-27 from FY 26-27 tax revenues shall not exceed the amount stated in Article 29 above. So that's telling the town, you're voting for this $5,000 appropriation for the LAD Center. You're saying they can spend this, and they can spend any money they raise, and they can also spend money from the LAD reserve account if necessary. And here's their budget. And the most that's going to be taken out of tax revenues is $5,000.
Yep.
Is the reserve account the bank account?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Well, it's,
It's not, it was the bank account, but now it is, and it still is in the credit union. But there, again, the LAD Center bank account. Well, that account wasn't owned by the LAD Center. That was a town bank account in the credit union. And those were funds that were owned by the town and were not in any reserve account.
I can't remember when we started that.
And,
Maybe so that we could keep track of it.
and we took care of that. We addressed that in the last town meeting, establishing that reserve account and transferring those credit union funds into it. And so now the town cannot invade that account to pay for any other town expense. It's illegal. Seems like you would like that.
we can't complain.
But
Like that.
Yeah.
No,
So
we,
that-
we knew that if we had something major go wrong here, that we needed to have a reserve. That was one of the reasons. You know, so.
yeah, well, I think that's a good reason for the reserve, Gloria, and again, the way I see things is, for example, if something major goes wrong, I think it's a town building. I mean, if the roof needs to be replaced, I think it's a town roof. I don't see any other way to look at that. Now, if the LAD Center wants to contribute to help that would be wonderful and great. But I think to say, oh, that's the LAD Center's problem because it's a town building. But then, and I think your group might like that approach. But that approach also means that the building itself is controlled and owned by the town. The building itself is not owned, so, but anyway, I think we've addressed, if you look at the
Yeah, I think the only,
C and D, I think we've wrestled with and have defeated some of our financial boogeymen, I believe. Hopefully.
So which paragraph are we on in the ordinance? We've gone through A.
Well, and as I'm suggesting, maybe he just answers. What I asked is the draft, clarify what it means that the LRC board exercise and manage, or maybe the answer to that is just yes. The recommended budget, I think the LRC program budget, I think the second dot on page 2 of Henry's secret memo that you just got has been addressed in our budget process and in our warrant articles. Okay. What's intended with regard to maintenance and capital improvements at the facilities? Are you making recommendations to town officials, or do you actually exercise control over the maintenance and capital improvements to this town-owned property? And that goes to the, that says that for LRC programs, approve recommended operating budgets, maintenance and capital improvements to the LRC facilities.
That's probably just inartful wording, Henry, because the intent is that the recommended modifier applies to all of that.
In that, so that's just the question, Eric, and we can go, go through and say, yeah, no, we're just making recommendations.
So on line 18, it implies you're gonna approve, the rec center is gonna approve capital improvements to the facilities.
No.
No,
We're approving recommendations that will go to the town.
perhaps,
So it's a wording issue.
Yes,
yeah,
we're approving recommended operating
How about
budgets,
this?
maintenance, and capital improvements. All of those are recommendations.
I would just a wordsmithing suggestion. If you're going to recommend, let's say, improvements to the physical plant here. The lad board wants to recommend, man, these ceiling tiles look really bad and I think they should be replaced. Okay. Let's say the lad board can recommend improvements, not recommend and approve. The approve causes me heartburn.
I think where this language comes from, and it's more detailed later in the ordinance, is one of the director's responsibilities is to identify those needed capital improvements, present them to the board. The board either agrees or disagrees. If they agree, then it goes forward to the select board as a recommendation. That's
Okay.
where the approval process is coming from. It's not authorizing to spend money.
Yeah,
It's authorizing a recommendation that goes to the select board or the
okay,
town manager.
Is there a
Okay.
set amount on that, on each of those projects? Like for our financial, our purchasing policy, we have up to $1,000 per department. Up to 5,000 for the road commissioner, and anything over 15,000 has to go through a formal bidding process.
Yeah. We're not suggesting doing anything differently.
well, tell me if I've got
That's
this right. What I think should happen, Shannon, is the lad board recommends either they all march down there in tandem and sing it to you, or they send Adam to tell you, okay? The lad board recommends all these ceiling tiles need to be removed, they replaced, they look bad, okay? I'm not making a judgment about your ceiling tiles, but that's just a possibility.
Yours.
Okay, that's right. Yeah. Now,
I got it in stereo.
yeah, that's good.
So-
Now,
So I've got the
but once they say that, and the select board says, yeah, I think we should do that, it's up to Shannon, the town purchasing agent, to contract to get these ceiling tiles replaced.
So I think we agree on what has to happen,
Yeah,
but I think we have a problem with the English language.
yeah,
And I'm gonna suggest if we insert the word on line 19, recommended maintenance and capital improvements,
Yeah.
that will fix the problem. Because it appears that the only thing that's recommended is the operating budgets, and that you're approving the maintenance and capital improvements, not the recommended.
This is always the problem when you try to summarize something
Yeah.
early in a document where it's
Yeah.
defined in detail later on.
okay, well, then I think that's a good answer. Hold your horses, dude, you'll come to it in a minute.
I'm fine with that suggestion. It's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would just say, the LRC program shall be overseen by a 9-member board of directors whose objective is to make policy for the LRC programs, approve a recommended operating budget for those programs, and recommend maintenance and capital improvements to the LRC facilities.
That works too.
Okay? And that's what my questions on page 2 said. Do you make requests or recommendations, or do you exercise control, suggest revisions, depending upon the answer to these questions? And we just did that.
Would it serve the purpose to just take out the word approve? Does that hurt us?
I think the way we just did it works,
Okay,
because,
let's go.
on the section B lines 20 to B1A lines 20 to 24. The draft provides that vacancies on the LRC board are filled by LRC board members in attendance at the board's December meeting. No town official has input, nor does town meeting. I didn't notice provisions in the draft for any oversight of the LRC board by town officials. Is the intent to provide for an LRC board of directors that is a self-appointed body unaccountable to the town? Now, you may want to change that language. You may say, gee, Henry, that's kind of a harsh way to phrase it. And maybe it was, but all I think we need to go forward to discuss an ordinance and go forward to our lawyers is answers to those questions. And if you want to suggest revisions. And then when we have a board meeting, we can say, hey, this draft ordinance says that the LRC board is not subject to any kind of accountability to the town official. Is that okay? 3 out of 5 of us say that's okay. Good. That's what we send to the town. 3 out of 5 of us say no, then we suggest changes.
I don't think that anyone who's wanted to be on the Lad Center board has ever been rejected or turned away. That's just an aside.
Yeah.
You know, people are interested and they let us know. And I don't think anyone has objected or wanted to be on the board. Couldn't be on the board.
Lori, I'm not suggesting that your procedure is bad or good or anything. I'm just saying, is this board independent of the town officials for selecting members or providing any oversight? That's the only question. And
the only I would say, Henry, is they have indirect oversight just through the town manager's supervision of the director. But as to the board directly, you have read it correctly.
And I think we would be here way past my bedtime if we are going to resolve and wordsmith these things as we sit here tonight. Personally, I think we can make great headway if we just got answers to all of them.
Well, the answer to that's yes.
Yes, okay.
So I think we should flag that and ask the lawyer, is it a risk that it's an independently selected board?
Yeah. I would have questions for the lawyers before I could vote on acceptance or rejection of the ordinance. That I know I'll ask, and the question would be, see their answer to this dot on page 2 of this. Is that okay with you? To the lawyer, and if they say yes, and most of the rest of my colleagues say yes, I can tell you, I would vote yes. I have no reason to vote no if it's okay. Now, if it's not okay, if they're saying an activity like this with town employees, et cetera, like I've already said, if that board there should be some oversight by town officials, and it's not okay to not have it, well, then I'd say, no, I can't vote for this because our lawyers told us it's not okay.
Well, I guess
So, and
we'll see what the lawyers say, but
yeah,
if the answer is that is problematic, then we would need more direction than that. I mean, is it sufficient for the select board to simply ratify board members?
Yeah.
Do they need to seek and appoint board members themselves? Decisions that are made by board members, do they need to be authorized by the select board? There are a lot of gradations to what that means.
and it really comes from the root question, which is the LAD board a town board? And I think you all have told me no.
As it's drafted, it is.
Yeah, but that's really where it goes to, and it goes back to the town department, and it all goes back to what control what control must town officials have over activities, say, that use the town tax ID number, sales tax exemption number. I can show you many MMA articles, not many, I can show you a few MMA articles that basically are asking questions. Can such and such a volunteer organization use our sales tax exemption number if they're buying things to support the town? And the answer to that is no. The only sales tax ID number can only be used by town activities. Now, in our case, it is only used by town activity because Shannon buys everything that you ask to be bought.
Or
But
the
then-
director buys it directly himself.
Well, okay, but he buys it as a town employee on a town credit card.
Yes.
Yeah. Under the supervision, hopefully, of our town purchasing agent.
And approval through warrant with the town
Yeah.
select board.
Henry,
Yeah,
I
yes, sir.
I just like to point out, it seems like this is something that's important to you, that because it's, so many things are done by the town, that it must be a town. The town has to have ultimate control over it, and
Yes.
there are many, many examples of, mostly I know of nonprofits, not so much government, although I know of a couple of government entities that this is the case of, where a nonprofit is basically the fiscal agent for another entity, maybe that has that's not incorporated in any way. The money all goes into the entity that is providing for this fiscal management. The employees are supervised by this other body. This other body has ultimate control over the employee, and all of the funds that have gone into the fiscal agent for the purposes of this other entity. And the fiscal agent has no control over the board or any of the programs whatsoever. And that's just kind of a standard operating procedure for kind of, you might say, startup nonprofits. And I'm aware of it also in some instances, at least with the government, at least the state government, where the same sort of thing occurs. I don't understand.
I would be happy to send our lawyer a question of or send MMA a question. That would be cheaper. Can a non-town entity utilize the town as its fiscal agent? Would that be the question? I can tell you what the answer to that's going to be, but that question is that is really what you just said, correct?
Well, I think it's more complicated than that.
Well, how is it more complicated? Is it a non-town entity that we're talking about?
We're talking the
So some-
individuals, there is supervision of the
Is the organ,
employees by the town.
is the organization with the bucks, with the money, are they part of the town? No. Is an organization that's not part of the town, use the town as their fiscal agent? We can ask that question. Which is what you've been doing,
Well,
correct?
we can remember too that we supply $5,000 out of $120,000 to the budget.
Yes.
And that may have something to do with how much control we see is necessary, whereas we're all talking as though this is 100% town funded, but it's not.
Any money that the town spends, and I can show you where this is, but it's not the way we have done it in the past. The money that the town spends has to be approved by the town on a warrant as to amount and source of funds. That's why now they can approve funds that are donated. The farmer's market is going to have a warrant. The aging at home is going to have a warrant that says we're appropriating, raise and appropriate this many funds and authorize them to spend this and whatever else they collect in donations, grants, et cetera, et cetera. But the arrangement that we have used is transparent to or hidden from the town meeting. The town writes checks of $150,000 that comes from, you're the source of the funds. I'm not saying taxpayers are paying, you're the source of the funds, but the town writes these checks and the town meeting has never said that's okay or that's not okay.
Well, the money's given to the town. So why wouldn't they be writing the checks?
The town has to say that that's okay. Now,
Do you think they wouldn't?
I don't know, but do you think we should not ask them?
Well, I think.
Hey,
we can
mom,
ask
hey,
them,
hey,
but
mom, do I want to do such and such? I'm not going to ask you because do I think you tell me no? Nah, you wouldn't tell me no.
I think that question to the lawyers should say, if it's covered by the ordinance, and perhaps in the roles and responsibilities section, we actually say the town acts as a fiscal agent.
Actually, the town's not asking it. We have that settled now.
Right, the town
Because
has
the ta-
control over the budget.
We have that settled now because there's gonna be a budget. You know, the town's gonna vote to accept the Lad Center budget. Now, maybe they'll vote no, I don't know, that's a problem then. But the town's gonna vote to accept the Lad Center budget and provide that it's only gonna be funded through
Yeah, the town's financial liability's been limited.
Yes.
It's gonna be limited to the amount that was appropriated at town meeting.
And-
That's it.
And as far as actual, let's say this was a town department. Just a hypothetical. If this was a town department, who do you think ultimately calls the shots, really? Could we take your money and spend it on something that you hated? And still expect to get another $20,000 contribution in 2 months from the Helen and George Ladd Foundation? No. I think ultimately you control this because it's your money. But anyway, the questions are here. You're all sick of listening to me, so I'm really not gonna say anything unless somebody has a question for me.
It's all right with the Ladd Charitable Corporation to give the town the money to operate the rec center that they gave to the town. The giver, is what you're doing. Don't,
So Henry, just to address globally the issues about the level of detail in here about governance. I was taking guidance from Paul's letter as to what level of detail to include in here versus the bylaws.
Mhm.
You know, everything that he said should be included, I've included. I don't disagree with you that these are all also covered in our bylaws and,
Yeah.
and could just as easily be addressed there.
Mhm.
But I was, as I said, taking guidance from his letter.
Yes,
So I think for transparency purposes, it's good to have it here because folks that may be curious might not have access to the Ladd Center bylaws.
Yep.
But I would also say we probably want to be a bit more explicit in here about Freedom of Information Act and add something around the FOA requirements and maybe annually have your board members do that 15-minute training to make sure they understand, you know, what's FOAable and what's not.
if it's not a town board, they don't. That's where we go. If it's a town board, they need to meet the open meeting requirements of the Freedom of Access Act. They're saying they're not a town board.
Oh, so then they don't
So
have to comply.
then, you know, and if,
Scratch that.
now your meetings have been open, I understand. Nobody's criticizing you about having secret meetings. I've been told that yeah, I've been told that your meetings are wide open.
We could say that,
Yeah.
it could be in the ordinance that we're
Yeah.
subject to the FOIA.
But if you're not, then maybe it muddies the water by adding it.
And Eric, I think a lot of the comments, most of those comments, the most recent draft from the lawyer actually are written by the same guy that wrote the first one. It's our employment lawyer. It wasn't a different lawyer that wrote them. And I read those as non-responsive to my question, because I asked the question, the Ladd Center's proposing this. Does this mean blah, blah, blah? And what he wrote back is, I understand that's not the way it works. If you look at his response to you'll see that. So I read his communication perhaps differently than you do, because I think his communication didn't communicate anything. And you'll say, well, Henry, that's just because you didn't get the answer that you wanted. And I'll say, no, that's because I didn't get any answer at all. I would have been happy if he would have said, yes, that's okay, or no, that's not okay. But he didn't say yes or no. He said, it's my understanding this is not the way it works.
But he also said it should be documented in an ordinance.
Yeah, but he didn't say what the ordinance should say.
No.
Instead,
The
the
implication was that as long as it was in an ordinance and the town approved it, that would cover it.
I don't know if that was the implication, but that's not what he said. He didn't say anything. I found his memo most unhelpful, even if it disagreed with what I thought I would have found that helpful. I couldn't see that he said anything. But
So is there nothing wrong with sending this out to MMA now, as it is, and asking them those questions, and if they bless it, we're good? If this is the
If-
way that it's being suggested, because it's gotta, it worked for the lad board this way. What's wrong with saying this is what they've addressed as a workable solution to working with us? It's still not clear enough for you, though.
Well, I'm happy to send it this way. Now, it needs to go with an explanation of what actually happens. For example, this doesn't, and many of the sore points, I think, have been addressed in our budget process. Because there were a lot of budget problems that were not good at all. But as far as it, which is one of the reasons the finances were, there was disagreements and a mess up on that. Sure, I'm happy to,
My other concern too is with Shannon and the work that she's doing, because she has a lot of responsibility on the financial and the personnel part of this. So I'd like to hear from Shannon to know if there are things that are not clear for her in terms of her responsibilities of management. Because I think that she's definitely a huge consideration as to whether this works or.
Yeah, I think some of the things that have just been unclear to me since I've taken on the role is just understanding the overall like insurance coverage. And I mean, I just highlighted it right here on the page 4 of the employees or the attorney's document that he had sent. And so in the extent that LRC employees are not regarded as town employees, which you did clarify that they are, but knowing that they are, I just filled out an unemployment compensation quarterly report today. So that included 12 employees. So we are paying for unemployment compensation. We have a coverage for workers' compensation. We have coverage for the personal property and casualty pool. So there's just a bunch of different requirements. And so even in here, it was ensuring that we are meeting ADA requirements. The Bureau of Labor Standards did come down and do an inspection. But when I call the Maine Municipal Association Risk Management, they said it's kind of fuzzy as far as what insurance looks like for coverage for Lad Rec Center, because right now they don't cover it. They don't cover Lad Rec Center under some of their things, but we still file all of the employees that are still under here. And so it doesn't seem clear because they are our employees, but I don't think there's any mention that they fall under the town's personnel policy. So the director does, but then all the other employees that are underneath him don't necessarily. They are covered through grants, but so I mean, I think in here it just said making sure that it's stated that they fall under the personnel policy, and then making sure that it's included in here. And
I thought
maybe
it did. but-
maybe it does. Maybe I just missed it.
Certainly that was the intent.
Okay. I think, but some of those things, when we start looking at how we file everything and sending that out, making sure that it's all included. Because just talking MMA, it just seemed unclear.
Are there any issues with us paying insurance or some of those other fees up front before monies have been received into that account? Or, I mean, are we spending money we don't have yet in that account?
Well, so, I mean, they bill us based off of what we send them from our payroll.
Right.
So every quarter we send them our payroll and what the total amounts were from those employees. And that's including the temporary staff, the seasonal staff, that's including the part-time staff for Lad Rec Center. And so those all get factored into their annual bill. I don't know what the breakdown of that is.
Workers' comp insurance on Lad Center employees is currently paid by the town from taxpayer funds funded under the general and administrative appropriation. That's the answer to that question. Now, it's a minimal amount. It probably doesn't amount to anything. But then, as Shannon was saying, you've got workers' comp that the town covers. You've got the time that the town employees spend, which has been considerable, figuring out the problems that we caused in great part.
But that's in the
But-
past too.
But none. Who has asked the town, do you agree to us paying all this out of the taxpayer funds? No one ever has.
So is that because there's a gap in what's budgeted by the rec center to cover their
No,
personnel
I-
cost?
It's just, but if we
They-
had,
they haven't- they
if we
haven't-
have an if we have an ordinance that says these are all town employees, town pays all their employment costs, then it's covered.
But the operating budget should cover the cost of those employees, including family medical leave, I assume.
Okay, guys, our director is speaking.
Yes, sir.
Oh, we also pay for a workers' comp policy, which is included in the budget that we submitted.
So
Okay.
it's just
We're probably
one,
double covered.
one
But if-
example of insurance we were never covering.
Which is a problem with our system here that's been working for 40 years.
And then it
That's-
goes-
We're both paying the workers' comp insurance. Insurance companies love us.
That's two. on the board.
If we've made a
Exactly.
mistake.
We found it out.
Yeah.
So there's some doubles right there. And then if there were any kind of legal costs coming up, I think that Bernstein Shore stated that the town is their client. The Lad Rec Center is not. So if there were any kind of labor issues or anything that were to come up that you would need legal support on, say a kid gets hurt on the playground because it's not up to standard, and Maine Municipal Association RIS did identify that that playground needs to be redone. But if someone were to get hurt on that, how does that fall into the town? Is the town liable? Because it is their building, but is that, I mean, how is that really working out as far as children? And should we close off the playground? Is that a town decision or is that a Lad Rec Center board decision? It's a question.
Yeah.
Clarification.
Well, my personal view on items like that is it's gotta be collaborative. Yes, it is a town facility, the property is the town property. Yes, this group is managing programs that operate on that property. If there are risks and hazards that need to be addressed, they need to be addressed jointly.
What does that, okay, let's say the MMA risk management was more severe in their assessment, and they said, this thing needs to come down. We're not insuring you.
It comes down.
Town's gonna take it down. It shouldn't be up to the Lad Center to have any input one way or the other on whether it comes down.
But if it was that severe, we would support that.
Well,
There's-
whether,
it sounds like
whether.
it needs to be more
Well,
collaborative.
I'm saying, what I'm saying is there's no need. That's something that is on the towns, that is on.
I think
in the
it's
town's
far
side.
more likely
Yeah.
that those risks are gonna be
Identified by you
here
guys. I think
and
that's
bring them
probably
to the
true.
town.
No, I think that's true. And then if the playground needs to be replaced, in town meeting, and if the Lad Center wants to do that out of its reserve fund or out of a donation, then the select board probably can accept that and do it. If we want town funds, town meeting, and it would be certainly fair to ask for some town funds to put up a playground. It's for the town. It's not solely for the Lad Center programs. Town meeting has to decide that.
And that's the structure we've
Yeah.
laid out.
I don't know that we've accomplished much other than listen to me bore everyone, but, if you would like to answer, if you think there's, worth in having those questions answered, that would be fine. If we can't make decisions here tonight, it's just a workshop session, but we can take it up at our next meeting, mull it over. If you guys want to send this just the way it is to MMA, we can do that.
Well, there may be a few more things just we might want to clarify, Henry.
Okay. Yes,
From a timing perspective, the budget. Budget due dates, do we want to align that with when we really need the budgets? It's, I want to say it's in here.
It's in here is April, and I think we should, yeah.
Yeah.
Should we
We'd
back
like
that
to
back
do
so it aligns with when we actually need
Yeah,
it?
definitely.
Shannon, when do you need it for the budget?
I think, I don't have my budget schedule.
Is it like February, 135?
Yeah.
So it says prior to April 1st, but that's too late for the budget process.
Yeah, I think we
Yeah.
could change that to March 1st.
Is that early enough for you
That should be fine.
for a major component of the budget? Well, maybe it's not a major component. And then, thought I had something on another page circled.
Oh,
Shannon, around uh accurate records of accounting, operating income 76, paragraph 76 to 83. Some things get reported to the town treasurer, but is there anything that you would need as the town manager? They're just submitting warrants.
Line 76.
Yeah, so they prepare a monthly financial report to go to the Lad Rec Center board. And then they just provide the warrants to
I might be on a wrong.
warrants and
I think our
income.
numbers aren't jiving for some
Yeah.
reason.
No, mine aren't either.
Uh,
Keep getting.
we'll go back to the number.
Okay, so it's in the director responsibilities.
Yes, ma'am.
It's in the director responsibilities. It's the 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth paragraph down.
The
And it's
director
talking,
still maintaining that. Okay, line 80, start on line 80 if you
Okay.
can.
okay, so that paragraph talks about monthly financials going to the rec center, but all that the town treasurer gets are the warrants and the
All requested supporting information.
supporting information. But does either the treasurer or the town manager need any kind of additional reporting, especially, I know you're all synced up now, but somehow you got out of sync. So if the director, rec center director is keeping track of the finances, would we want to have a mechanism for a closer alignment so they don't
Well, as part of
veer
what,
off again?
as part of what the director provides with each warrant. Is
So you
a
get a-
running total of what the account balance is.
So when he comes up for, submits all of his hours for payroll, each payroll period every 2 weeks, he also includes any statements, invoices that need to be paid or credit card receipts that are included for that statement. So they get included on the next warrant.
So how do you ever reconcile whether the numbers have gone astray again?
So, I mean, yeah, so as he also brings up a total amount of any cash, checks, donations, and so he puts it on a spreadsheet and outlines it for us.
Okay, I just wondered whether there was anything that you
Yeah.
needed in that paragraph.
I think that's perfect.
My questions that are in this, in this memo ask about that. It says, is the draft proposing, there's a little, some stuff over, but is the draft proposing maintenance of 2 sets of books, one by the town and one by the LRC board? Or one set of books maintained by the director and LRC board, or town maintained books with information provided to the LRC board for fundraising and planning purposes? To me, it's, if we're doing the official books, if we're writing checks and putting things on warrants, are the books that are being maintained by Lynn in our office.
Mhm.
I mean, period. Now there could be, for planning purposes, the board may have its own books. I think you certainly want to make sure that we haven't taken your money again by accident or intention. But
Well, if
The-
we to know what we spent.
the book,
So.
the official books of the accounts in the Trio town accounting system, and Trio account number, whatever it is, that's the Lad Center, are the books that Lynn keeps.
Yeah, we don't disagree that the town's books are the official books.
Yeah.
But for purposes of managing the programs,
Mhm.
there's not sufficient detail in Trio to manage to our budget. And there's just not enough granularity in there to do that.
Yeah.
That's why we have what is structured here as a separate reporting requirement to the board.
Yeah, and I think what you, as far as the ordinance goes and the relationship between the board and the town, I think it would be town maintained books with information provided to the LRC board for fundraising and planning purposes. And if you want to have other things in there, it's just when we say, the books and records for operating income and expenses, since you are your own outfit and not a town agency, it's clear that you're talking about your books and not the town's books that are going to control and govern warrant disbursements. Which that's been unclear in the past. If you look at Trio, sometimes, and it hasn't been correct, but sometimes it shows you guys are way in the hole. And that's been an error, but the bigger error was on the part of the select board in approving that warrant.
Mhm.
We should have said, no, they're in the hole. We can't prove that. And then we would have maybe found out about our problem sooner and attended to it.
Mhm.
And the board is only as accurate as the information that
Yeah.
we're helped with.
Yes. But, I asked these questions shortly after, you gave us your, deal, and I sent them to our group for us to discuss, at a select board meeting, and I believe it never happened. As it started out, the whole enterprise got stopped, and here we are tonight.
It's very difficult for me to discuss it intelligently at all, even a little bit, which I'm struggling for with all this, without understanding what the board wants, given the fact that it's an old establishment in Wayne, and understanding how best they see the lad rec process moving forward. So for us just to discuss it among ourselves, there's just too many questions for me to be able to come up with any answers. The other thing that I have a big concern about is that I know Shannon and her crew have to manage all this on that side. And so I still haven't heard that that's going to be worked out in this conversation. So it seems like that there's a big gap between where we are now and fulfilling some of the things that Shannon sees on a month-to-month, week-to-week basis, going forward to be a partner in this whole process. So what I see as part of the continuing conversation needed is Shannon in her free time, working with the board, which may have happened to figure out how to close some of the gaps in I heard it insurance, and I didn't put in my brain all of them, but I heard some of the insurance concerns that we have. I think those are the gaps that we still need to work out.
Just a question, Shannon. I think you're asking in part, if Shannon can actually do some of this stuff that needs to be done. And I'm just wondering if what's outlined in this proposed ordinance, it creates more work for you than you're currently doing for the operations of the Lad Center.
I mean, I'm pretty hands off, and I would definitely say that Adam is running all of the operations, and we just receive in, like I said, the reports of what money he has collected. I don't really oversee any of that firsthand. And then the expenditures, we just received those in as well. I think as far as personnel policies, we can do better as far as going over some of those personnel policies, such as, or like towns' financial policies, or like the credit card policy, it might be good to review. And that might be good to do more on a quarterly basis.
And there's mandated training that town employees have to have, and has that been happening?
There are, and
I
that's,
haven't seen any of those policies.
Well, understood. I mean,
Like
this
the-
is, we're going
like the
forward
credit
now.
card policy, I
Yeah,
haven't
I'm
seen
just
any
wondering.
Purchasing policies
Yeah.
I have never seen.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't think we've really thought about it.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I think that those are important.
Yeah.
If we're considering if the reality that folks who are working here are town employees. So I think that those gaps need to be covered as well.
Has that been settled? One way or
I
another?
think it's been mentioned, but
It's-
that I see as a real.
It is certainly
concrete
how we have
issue.
been operating. It's not, regardless of what the ordinance says, that is how they've been operating. They are town employees.
Yes.
Yeah, we just have kind of overlooked the fact that there's training that's needed and
There-
some of it's so boring.
They're on the town payroll. Shannon, tell us, what is your effective control of these employees or knowledge of what they're doing?
Well, to my understanding, I should be taking a larger step onto this and implementing some of those town policies and bringing it down to the Lad Rec Center.
It would seem to me that you've got Adam that you could, offer marching orders to.
Yeah.
And he could probably take care of that without you having to
Mhm.
put in hours upon hours. Is
Yes.
that,
Absolutely.
But just as when you say they are town employees, they're folks that are on the town payroll. How their relationship and their duties are managed may be another issue that Shannon can tell us about, but they definitely are on the town payroll.
I think one of the things that we thought we might review are the insurance policies. We think we might be overinsured. Eric, don't we? We're not sure.
I think we have duplicate coverage on a number of policies.
So that's an area that we could examine. What kind of insurance coverage we have and at what amount, and are we duplicating? And are we,
and that money could be put towards other things like training that are necessary.
or maybe the insurance policies that we have, the town would have more access to a better policy than we have? I think that we have some unknowns there. Is that true, Eric?
Yes,
So when I did talk to Maine Municipal Association Risk about some of those insurance policies, they did ask if the town is operating a daycare program. Because then that insurance would be covered under the town. But
Mhm.
as far as I know, the town does not operate a daycare. So that
Well-
would be like an insurance that, I mean, when it comes up, what is covered? I mean, that's where they said it gets
And-
fuzzy.
And if these programs are operated by the town, they come under the town insurance, they come under the the Maine State Tort Claims Act, which limits the liabilities for injuries that happen on town property in town activities, but we don't appear to want to say it's a town program. So that puts the whole issue of insurance in a cloud.
So for example, even the fences are a requirement for for children outside that are being run for a daycare program. The town doesn't have a daycare, so we're not responsible to put fences out there. But if we want the Lad Rec Center to get the insurance cover, the town is responsible to put the fences in to support the program. Even though it's our facility and we don't need fences. Does that
And-
make sense?
And the insurance, I'd be interested to see who the insured is. Your policy is none of my business, but just idle curiosity, I'd be interested to see who the named insured is on your insurance policy. Is it the LAD board? Because that's not an organized legal entity that can be sued. Is it all the directors individually? Maybe all the directors individually are also additional insureds. I don't know, but that's an interesting question that should be looked at. And the town should be a named additional insured, I would suggest, but that's all part and parcel of whether it's a town activity or not.
Well, the town owns the building and the employees of the town.
That's exactly, Gloria. That's why I say it ought to be a town program. You are 100% correct. That's why it needs to be a town program.
Our insurance policies just list Lad Recreation Center as being insured.
See, and the Lad Recreation Center is a building.
No, but that's,
So they've insured this building.
so that's what we've had forever. So that, I think that's what we're saying. We want to look at this.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We agree, we need to look at it.
but to
Isn't
look
that
at
right,
it,
Eric?
Yes,
but to look at it and answer the question, if you want to say, we're not part of the town, then it's not our business to look at it, you look at it. I think you should be part of the town, and then we'll look at it. It's our responsibility. But you don't want to be part of us.
But we do have liability insurance. If we're not a program of the town, we still have that liability insurance.
It'd be interesting to see who's the insured and who would they sue?
See, LRC.
I do know about suing people. And it would be, if I wanted to sue the LAD board, I'd have to sue all you individually.
Well, that's
Because
what I was,
You have insurance for that.
Okay, because the LAD board is not,
The board is insured.
it's not an entity, it's not a legal entity that I can serve, yeah, that I can,
you have that.
yes, that I can serve papers on. But anyway,
Well, I think that's an area that we want to, and want to make sure we have the right.
so where do we go from here?
That's the question, isn't it?
I heard Mary Ann say she wanted you folks to have an opportunity to discuss some of this.
That's not what I said. What I said was it's impossible for me to discuss this because I think that the input from the board is paramount for me to understand how to go forward with.
I misunderstood what you meant by the board.
oh, no.
What are you talking about?
She's talking about you all.
Yeah,
Okay.
what are your intents? What are your concerns? What do you want to, what do you want to avoid? What do you feel you need in order to maintain everything that the Lodge Recreation Center does?
What if we address some of the questions, make some of the wording changes that we think will better satisfy some of the concerns? And then get that back to you and then have you send it to the attorneys.
To spell some of the stuff out that
Yeah.
answers some of Henry's questions.
And I'm sorry you didn't have that ahead of time. I almost thought, I can't believe that anything is sent to anybody in this town that at least within 2 weeks isn't in every household. But apparently this one slipped through the cracks.
Yeah.
But is that a reasonable thing to do?
I think so. I mean,
Eric, if something needs to go to everybody, can it be sent to you to disseminate?
absolutely.
You're the chairman of this board, correct?
Yes.
And he's been a board member and an advisor for many years.
Way too long.
I think I've
And
seen
good
them
job.
like
Thank
25
you.
and 30 years ago.
Mhm.
Yeah, but for various reasons, it's been necessary to go look through old town meeting stuff. And I'm amazed and appreciative when I see these names that I see now are in town reports from, 1998. You guys have been working on this for a long time. And
Anything else?
Will we adjourn?
yes, now, we're not taking any action at this meeting, but I guess we need to decide at our next regular meeting. Are we gonna wait to get some feedback from Eric before we bring it up at our next meeting?
I think that that's the only way that
Okay.
we would have a meaningful conversation.
That's good. So we'll take it up at our next meeting where we actually vote on stuff when we hear back. If you have any questions about what I mean by that paper that you have there, give me a call and ask me.
No, it's pretty clear. We have a board meeting on Monday night, so this is fortunate. We'll have an opportunity to discuss this among our board and hopefully we can get you a draft back.
And it's an open meeting?
Yeah.
And what time is it?
6:30.
6:30, Monday night,
Here.
here.
It's a good place.
It's a hopping place.
Refreshment?
No, we used to have chocolate on the tables, but we don't have it anymore.
And Olive brought chocolate chip cookies.
Oh, she did.
Oh, wait a second. We have new family representatives since Helen, where are the chocolate chip cookies?
Well, okay. Donna used to